What is a time you got seduced that you will never forget? Story 1. Me and my friends went out to play soccer at the school's field for funsies on the weekend. I was probably 19, and one of my friends who was from Switzerland, we live in Nova Scotia, brought one of his friends who was the only girl. She was immediately very flirty. We played some soccer, and at one point took a little break and broke open a case of bottled waters. She opened the bottle and sprayed me with it. I sprayed her back and ran. She chased me down and grabbed me and wrestled me for a bit. I overpowered her and then ran again. Outskilled idiot. At some point, she took my phone and put it in her back pocket. Give it back. Take it from me then. And she turned around and stuck out her assets, to which I took my phone and of course got to touch her. She said she is from Halifax and in town for 2 weeks for a reason I can't remember, and asked me to show her around the town tomorrow. We met up. I showed her around the town and she said she needs to go back to her hotel room to change her shoes. She did not change her shoes. As soon as we get to her room, she pushed me onto the bed and climbed on top of me, her face an inch away from mine. I can't remember what she said, but I kissed her and we just went all the way. She basically stayed with me for 2 weeks, banging multiple times a day, teenager stamina, until she posted a selfie of me and her on Facebook. Then her boyfriend DM'd me asking questions and I had to break the news. I asked for proof of relationship as on Facebook, nothing was listed for them, and he sent me a photo of his phone with her phone number, texting him about how she can't wait to be back in his arms and missing him, etc. I immediately broke things off and she denied everything. Why won't you believe me? We aren't in a relationship. The dude has receipts. He sent me a photo of his phone in under a minute when I asked for proof, so he obviously didn't fake it. I haven't seen her since. It was a pretty wild fling though. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I was gaming with some friends late at night, fully in the zone, headset on, snacks nearby, the usual. Suddenly, my girlfriend walks into the living room, wearing nothing but this green lingerie set that left very little to the imagination. She just stands there, cool as ever, and says, "When are you coming to bed?" I didn't even hesitate. I got up from the computer, said, "Guys, I gotta go," and just walked away. Game still running, mic still on. Didn't even log out. The silence on voice chat, priceless. Story 3. I was on a second date with this girl while living in South Korea, and we ended up heading to a motel afterward. You know, one of those places you can rent by the hour, mostly for, well, obvious reasons. I played it cool, suggesting it, like it was my idea, but I figured we were both on the same page. I was feeling pretty confident, thinking, nice, I made the move. But then she starts undressing and reveals this insanely expensive-looking lingerie set, paired with the kind of seductive smirk that says, "I've been 5 steps ahead of you this whole time." In that moment, it hit me. I never made the decision to go to that motel. And honestly, respect. Story 4. Not me, but my best friend in high school came very close to having his big moment and totally fumbled it. We used to hang out at this Irish pub that didn't card, and one night we're there while he's on a break with his longtime girlfriend. Now this dude had told me 1,000 times that he was saving himself for marriage, dead serious about it. Enter this older woman, total cougar energy. She sits down, starts chatting him up real smooth, and even buys us both a few shots. Then she invites us back to her place to hang out. We go, thinking, okay, why not? She opens a bottle of wine, pours us some glasses, and that's the last thing I remember before everything goes black. Next thing I know, I wake up in a pitch dark room and realize they're both gone. My immediate reaction? Oh no, this is it. My buddy's about to lose his V card to a total stranger in her 40s, and he's gonna hate himself for it later. I bolt down the hallway trying to find the bedroom and immediately trip over something. Turns out it was him, my 6'3", 200-pound friend, completely passed out on the floor. She'd apparently tried to get him into bed, but didn't account for him being a total lightweight. Plot twist, I broke my ankle in the process and spent the entire summer sidelined from swimming and surfing. Still blame him to this day. Story 5. There was this girl in my friend group I'd always thought was cute. I never made a move though, didn't want to risk making things awkward with everyone else. One night, she and a few others came by the place I was working. She'd had a couple drinks, nothing wild, just enough to lower the filter a bit. She leans in close and whispers something in my ear. She says, "I think about you when I sup alone." That one sentence broke my brain. From that moment on, I couldn't stop thinking about her. And yeah, we ended up having a short but very memorable fling afterward. It definitely changed how I saw her and myself for a while. Story 6. This happened a while back when I was traveling for work. I was married at the time, so I wasn't looking for anything. But this moment still sticks with me. I sat down at the bar to grab some dinner, and a woman took the seat next to me. She started chatting me up. Hair flip, leaning in, playful eye contact, the whole deal. All the signs were there. We both ordered the same glass of wine. Mine was on my right, her direction. Hers was closer to me. At some point, she accidentally grabbed my glass, finished the rest, and then turned toward the bartender to order another. I politely let her know she'd just finished mine by mistake. She blushed, apologized, and offered to buy me another round. I smiled and told her, "No need, I was just having the one." And that's when she hit me with the line, "No more? I was hoping that wasn't the only thing of yours I should be putting in my mouth tonight." I swear I actually blushed. We both laughed, and I finished my meal, paid the bill, and headed back to my room alone. One of the boldest, most memorable pickup lines I've ever gotten. If I'd been single, she probably would have won that round. Story 7. In high school, I was at a party but not having much fun. I went outside to smoke a joint, and a few minutes a cute girl I sort of knew came outside to have a cigarette and looked at me shocked that I smoked weed. After staring for a minute, she said, "You know, I love giving blowjobs when I'm stoned." Without missing a beat, I passed her the joint. She simply said, "Good boy, let's go for a walk." After getting my soul sucked out of me, we went back to the party. About an hour and a half later, she asked me if I had another joint, and we wound up banging on a lounge chair at a random house. Story 8. She asked to borrow a shirt because she wanted to shower and didn't bring clothes. She came out of the shower carrying all of her clothes folded neatly with the panties on top, wearing on the white shirt I gave her. She didn't towel off. She was wet. The white shirt was wet. I was stunned. This was my buddy's little sister. She had just finished boot camp. I was in town for a football game. She saw my post on FB and asked if we could hang out after the game. So yeah, seduced by my close friend's sister, it was she perfect night, really. College football, some light day drinking, then amazing, unexpected, intimate encounter. Story 9. I was at one of those flashy clubs I'd normally avoid. You know, loud music, velvet ropes, bottle service, the whole scene. Out of nowhere, this classic SoCal blonde walks right up to me and says, "You are so cute," just like that. My friend, without missing a beat, says, "See you later," and disappears into the night. Fast forward a bit, and I find myself in her hotel room. She was in town for work, and while we were, let's say, getting to know each other better, the room phone rings. She picks up, it's a coworker confirming their plans for the next morning. After a minute of casual logistics, she pauses and goes, "Hey, I gotta go, some guy's got his mouth on my chest right now." Then she calmly hangs up like nothing happened. Still one of the most unexpectedly bold and unforgettable moments of my life. Story 10. So I'm still not entirely sure if it was seduction or just really good customer service, but let me tell you about this one experience. I had this tiny sliver of metal stuck in my eye, and my regular doctor was closed, so they sent me to an optometrist. The lady starts by shining a light in my eye, but can't see the metal. She then asks me to follow the tip of her finger with my eyes, which I do, but then she starts lowering her finger down to her cleavage, which by the way was clearly visible from the top of her shirt. She looks at me and says, "Yep, stay right there for a minute," and then proceeds to gently remove the sliver with some sort of tool. Honestly, I wasn't really paying attention at that point. Now, I'm still not sure if she was seducing me, just using her body to help me focus, or if it was all just one really happy coincidence. But I can tell you, I definitely had a bit of trouble walking out of there after that. Story 11. Oh man, this still lives rent-free in my head. I was at a bar with a friend who's a total social butterfly, like the kind of guy who can walk up to anyone and just start a party. He was chatting with a group of attractive women and getting them to rate random guys in the bar. Classic wingman stuff. Then he suddenly grabs me, stands me in front of them like I sup a contestant on The Bachelor, and goes, "What about this guy?" One of them looks me up and down and goes, "Okay, see? He's got the face, the hair, the jacket, the shirt, the pants, the shoes. He's perfect." And the others just nod like it's a group consensus. I was standing there thinking, cool, compliments, while my buddy basically handed me a golden opportunity. Looking back now, those women were super chatty and clearly interested, and I did absolutely nothing with it. Just stood there like, wow, neat, and basked in the praise. Still one of the best compliments I've ever received, and also one of my biggest missed chances. Story 12. Okay, this one still stings a little. I met this girl on a WhatsApp group for my student building. We'd barely started talking, and she invited me to a party just an hour after we first chatted, so I went. We spent the entire night together, having a good time, and then she invited me over to her apartment. Then, in the middle of the night, she asked me, out of nowhere, if she could sleep with me. And guess what I did? I froze. I had no clue what was going on, totally missed every sign, and honestly, I was scared. So I just politely said no, and never really spoke to her again after that night. Fast forward a year later, and it finally clicked. She was clearly interested, and I just completely missed it. I can't stop kicking myself for not picking up on the signs. Seriously, if I just read between the lines a little, things could have been so different. Story 13. This is a story from when I was 19, working as a bagger at Kroger, pulling carts in crazy heat, like 100 degrees outside. I'm sure I looked completely dead from the heat, just miserable. Then out of nowhere, a group of three college-age girls noticed me and pulled me behind a car. They asked, "Hey, do you want to see our melons?" I'm not gonna lie. I was a little stunned but also very curious, so I said, "Sure." Next thing I know, we're all in their truck. And yep, each one of them flashes me. They're laughing, having a good time. But honestly, it was actually kind of awkward. I didn't know whether to laugh with them or just look away. Definitely an unforgettable experience. But in hindsight, it was a little weird. Story 14. Okay, not me directly, but I benefited big time from it. I have this friend who legit looks like Captain America, like same jawline, same build, even the hair. Every time we hit a bar together, the wildest stuff happens. One night, we'd barely been inside for 5 minutes when this woman just walks right up to him, says nothing, and straight up starts making out with him. No intro, no conversation, just full-on movie moment energy. It's kind of unbelievable how quickly women start hitting on him whenever we go out. It's like he's got some magnetic field or something. But the best part, he's not just ridiculously good looking, he's also a great wingman. So when I was single, being out with him was like having a cheat code for socializing. Captain America with wingman skills, that combo changed the game for me. Story 15. This one still cracks me up and also left me speechless. I was at this trendy restaurant club hybrid that had two restrooms, a women's and a unisex one. The unisex had curtain stalls instead of doors, kind of artsy vibes. I walk in and there's a woman fixing her hair at the mirror. I give a polite, "Hey, just letting you know I'm here, so it's not weird," and she glances at me through the mirror. All good. I head into a stall, close the curtain, and well midstream, minding my business, when a hand suddenly reaches through the curtain and grabs my shoulder. I freeze. Then I hear a voice say, "I just wanted to tell you, I think you sir gorgeous." Mind you, I sat literally in the middle of peeing. I stammer out a confused, thanks. Look, I was about 30 seconds from finishing up, washing my hands, and heading back out to the same club where we could have actually had a conversation. But no, she picked that exact moment to shoot her shot. Points for boldness, though. Timing, maybe a little off. Story 16. One night, I sup out at a bar when this tiny woman walks right up to me and goes, "Can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a few minutes? Some guy won't leave me alone." I barely had time to process before squeaking out a, "Sure." She immediately slips under my arm, wraps hers around me like we've been dating for years, and just locks in. Instead of just standing there awkwardly, I went full method actor, chatting with my friend like she was my longtime girlfriend, and this was totally normal. I was going for the Oscar. Eventually, she must have decided I played the part well because she grabbed my hand and pulled me into the bathroom. We didn't go all the way, but let's just say many things happened that ended with a blowy. We ended up dating for a bit. The chemistry, wild. She actually gave me a ton of confidence I didn't even know I needed at the time. We're not in touch anymore, though. Turns out we had absolutely nothing to talk about. Great connection physically, but conversationally, total dial tone. Story 17. Okay, this one's a classic unsuccessful seduction that I'll never forget. I was playing pool in a busy bar, doing pretty well. There's a woman watching me, and she starts to make small talk. At one point, she says something about a hole in one, a little slurry. So naturally, I laugh it off and keep playing. The game continues, and I sit waiting for my opponent to take his shot when she comes over again. This time, she starts making this really provocative stroking motion on my pool stick. She leans in, whispers, "I have a car." By now, her level of intoxication is starting to show, but I'm still focused on my game. Not the right time, lady. After I win the game, I shake hands with my opponent and turn to walk away. She's kind of following me, but then circles back to the table to take her final shot. And then she hits me with the ultimate line. "I never use condoms." I'm sorry, what? I just froze. Didn't know what to say. It was awkward, confusing, and just a bizarre way to end the night. Story 18. At the time, I was 25, working as a manager at a business, mostly stuck doing tedious work in my corner office. Then there was her, let's call her Elena. She was 43 and worked in another part of the business, but would pop into my office all the time. She was super flirty, and I always got the feeling she was into me. Her talk definitely got a little more bold and edgy with time, and I was playing along, teasing back, or so I thought. One night, after everyone had left the office, she was there showing me something on my computer, standing way too close. Out of nowhere, she reached down like she was trying to get something but fondled my teabag ever so gently. I was completely shocked, but I won't lie, it was kind of fun. She whispered in my ear with this sultry accent and said, "I'm house sitting, take me home now and you won't regret it, promise." I didn't even think twice. I dropped everything, hopped in the car, and 30 minutes later, I found myself floating on my back in a private pool, enjoying an unforgettable blowy under the stars. It was just the beginning, too. Turns out, Elena had a lot of tricks up her sleeve. It was one of those nights you can't forget, and yeah, I definitely didn't regret a thing. Story 19. All right, this one's a weird story, but definitely unforgettable. So I had just been stabbed, yeah, not my best moment, and I'm rushed to an emergency clinic to get patched up. I'm sitting there just trying to breathe, and I'm being worked on by a physician's assistant who's maybe about 10 years older than me. As she's tending to my wounds, we start talking, and she goes into this full-on lecture about all the different infections and toxins I could catch from the stabbing. Her eyes light up, and I swear, she's really passionate about pathogens and infectious diseases. She's telling me all about how she wants to further her education in the field. I honestly have no idea what happened to my brain in that moment. But let's just say, I left that clinic in bandages and feeling way too good for someone who just got stabbed. I'm never going to forget that conversation. I mean, who knew pathogens could be such a turn-on? Story 20. So here's a story that started in the most unexpected way. A girl I worked with calls me up out of the blue. We chat for a bit, and then she says something like, "I miss doing it so much." I didn't really know how to respond, so I jokingly said, "Well, maybe you should just go sleep with your fiancé." She laughs and then hits me with, "Well, we actually broke up a few weeks ago." That's when things got interesting. I decided to meet up with her, and we spent the night together. No strings attached, just some casual fun. Fast forward 16 years, and, well, now we're married with 2 kids, a mortgage, 2 cars, a dog, a cat, and pretty much everything that comes with a full-grown, settled life. Definitely not what I expected when I first picked up that phone call. Story 21. All right, so here's a pretty unforgettable one. I went over to my crush's house. She was actually my ex-girlfriend's best friend, and let's just say, things were a little tense between the two of them. My crush was super upset with her friend, and she came up with this wild idea we should take some pictures pretending like we were dating to mess with her. As I was about to leave, she looked at me and said, "You know, If we sit pretending to date, we gotta make this authentic. I need to know how you are in bed. I just bum just standing there. Like, what? One thing led to another, and I ended up staying the night. Let's just say that was the start of a pretty fun friends with benefits situation for a while after that. Definitely not how I thought the night would end. But hey, it turned out to be one of those things I'll never forget. Story 22. Okay, so this one is all about me being way too thick-headed and paranoid about not misreading the cues. I went on a hike with this girl, and it was a hot summer day. She's wearing tiny shorts and a small top, and every time we had to climb over something or get through a tricky spot, she was, well, let's just say her boobs were rubbing all over my side, chest, and arms. Now, I'm an idiot, so I didn't pick up on any of this as a cue. I was so afraid of being creepy or misreading things that I just focused on the hike. Eventually, we reached this super secluded spot, this beautiful little body of water with trees, grass, and some shade. We sat down to relax for a bit, and she goes, "Wee, it's so hot. I hope you don't mind if I try to cool off." And then, without missing a beat, she takes off her shirt. Underneath, she's just wearing a bikini top. She starts making comments like, "My top is way too small for the girls," set they stir just squeezing out. The vibe was super chill. We were laughing, joking, just enjoying the day. But as we were getting ready to leave, I noticed this tension in the air, and she put her shirt back on. Nothing happened. Now, don't get me wrong, I was definitely attracted to her, but I just couldn't bring myself to make a move. I didn't want to be that guy who made the situation weird. She was just trying to be comfortable, and I didn't want to sexualize it. Fast forward a few more outings, and eventually, we did have a physical encounter. But yeah, it took me 3 of these hikes to finally pick up what she was putting down. She really had to be patient with me. That's for sure. Story 23. I was young, probably 21 or 22. And let's be honest, I was broke. Like seriously didn't have a dime to my name. I go to a bar, get myself a beer, and that's pretty much the extent of my night. But then out of nowhere, this girl just grabs my hand, leads me straight to her car and says, "Want to hang out at my place?" I something like, sure, that sounds great." So we head to her place. She's got a bottle of whatever. We get drunk, and well, let's just say we ended up doing quite a bit more than just hanging out. The next morning, she makes me pancakes, and we sit down to watch some football. I was like, wow, this is honestly one of the nicest mornings ever. It was just one of those spontaneous nights that turned into something unforgettable. Like I didn't even have to buy a drink, and it turned into this whole thing. Just one of those times I'll never forget. Story 24. I was in a really dark place at the time. I was in an abusive relationship. There was cheating, violence, even STDs. I was emotionally drained, feeling defeated, and honestly just numb. I went back to my hometown for a friend's funeral, just trying to process everything. I ended up meeting up with some old friends, and we all drank to escape the pain. By the end of the night, everyone had left except me and one close friend. I was crying, completely overwhelmed, and I just started pouring out everything I'd been through with my ex. And then my friend looked at me, really looked into my eyes and said, "I would treat you better." It hit me like a ton of bricks, and honestly, he did, and he still does, 4 years later. I never thought something so simple could change everything, but it did. That was the moment I realized what real care and respect felt like, and I'm forever grateful for it. Story 25. All right, this one's kind of funny. I was 19, cruising around in my car, listening to Down in a Hole by Alice in Chains. You know, just vibing to some good music at a red light. Then, of course, the line, "All I Want to Be Inside of You" comes on. Now, at the time, I had zero idea this song was about heroin or anything like that. I just liked the tune. Anyway, right at that moment, the older sister of a girl I liked pulls up next to me at the red light. We make eye contact, and somehow we both start singing that line in perfect harmony, just totally in sync. No planning, no hesitation. After the song ends, she smiles and says, "Follow me." I was 19. She was in her 20s, and let's just say, that night was memorable. A few years later, I married a woman who definitely benefited from the knowledge and fun she shared with me. And yeah, we still played a lot of speed metal. Damn, she was a blast. Story 26. This one's a bit weird, but it definitely sticks with me. I was on a train in Germany, sitting across from a woman in her mid-30s. There was a table between us, and my coworker, who was new to the job, was sitting next to me while I explained some work stuff to her. The woman across from me, though, was making things a little too interesting. At first, I didn't think much of it, but she kept touching my legs with hers. I kept moving my feet away, but she followed. After a while, the train stopped due to some technical issue, so we all had some time to chat. We started talking about how terrible German trains can be, just small talk to pass the time. But then it got strange. She started letting out these deep sighs. At first, I thought it was just frustration about the delay, but after a few more sighs, it became pretty obvious they weren't about the train anymore. They were more like moans, which, as you can imagine, caught my attention. To top it off, my coworker was totally oblivious. She was busy looking at her phone, probably thinking that this was just some weird German thing since she had just moved to the country. Yeah, it was a super awkward situation, and I still don't know exactly what was going on, but I'll never forget that train ride. Story 27. Okay, this one still makes me laugh. So I was out clubbing with some friends, celebrating one of them coming back to town after living in Japan for a few years. We were all having a blast, just dancing and catching up. At one point, the friend who had been overseas danced up to me and, let's just say, danced all over me. Now, I sup not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed when it comes to picking up hints, but after a little while she just grabs my hand, pulls me off the dance floor and sits me down. Then she looks me right in the eyes and just says, "So I sup trying to bang you." I'm not even kidding. That's what she said. I'm pretty dense when it comes to these things, so that kind of blunt honesty was exactly what I needed to finally get the hint. Sometimes, you just need someone to spell it out for you. Story 28. When I was in grad school, one of the hottest upperclassmen girls and I had a study hall together. We got to know each other, and despite my tiny frame and geeky demeanor, she took a liking to me. She invited me to her house one night to study, even though we had no classes together, besides study hall, lol. I got there and her parents weren't home, and instead she challenged me to a game of pool. She said whoever wins gets a massage from the loser. She proceeded to blatantly throw the game and would give me flirty eyes each time she missed every ball on the table. She didn't even come close to getting one in. She sat me down for my massage and started taking my jacket off, got closer to my ear. Then she told me how she wanted it to be her who took my V card. Insane. Still can't believe that happened to me. Story 29. I posted the long version before, but I was with my sister and some friends helping my sister's friend move apartments. We got the U-Haul emptied out, and she gave my sister some cash to go get us food and beer. Friend asked me to help her get the heavy stuff rearranged in the living room. After my sister and friends left, she bluntly said, "So are you gonna bang, or what?" I rearranged more than furniture. Story 30. Okay, let me take you back to a moment that felt like it came straight out of a wild, twisted movie. If that movie was directed by Quentin Tarantino and sponsored by tequila, it all went down at our regular pub. I was minding my own business, dressed in my least seductive outfit ever, jorts, and a golf shirt, basically. A walking advertisement for "I have baggage, but I brought snacks." I'm just there, living my life, when this girl walks in. And let me tell you, she didn't enter the room. She exploded into it. It was like a slow-motion wrecking ball made entirely of charm and chaos. She looks at me, and it was one of those looks that said, "I'm either going to ruin your life or make the next 48 hours unforgettable." Fast forward 3 hours. We're now deep in an intense debate about whether Bigfoot is real. Spoiler alert, neither of us have any solid evidence, but we both feel strongly about it. Somewhere between conspiracy theories and questionable snack choices, we ended up bonding over personal traumas like we were in a speed run of therapy. The dim lighting, the vibe, and this mysterious playlist called Building Ladders, it was doing the emotional heavy lifting for us. The next morning, I woke up with what I can only describe as an emotional hangover, wondering if I had just experienced wild passion or accidentally joined a cult. Either way, it was unforgettable. Story 31. Okay, so there was this one college party at a frat house, right? Classic scene. Everyone's loud cups are everywhere, and I'm just trying to find the bathroom. In my brilliant state of mind, I walked down the hall and accidentally opened a door. Turns out it was the master's room. Inside, there were three girls just hanging out on the bed, casually chatting. I freeze and of course blurt out, "Oh, sorry, wrong door." But to my surprise, they invite me in. They say, "Come in, close the door." So, like a confused deer in headlights, I do what any normal person would do. I close the door, but not like lock it. And that's when one of the girls says, "You should lock the door." At this point, I'm still not connecting the dots. So I just casually lock it, thinking I'm just being polite. Then out of nowhere, one of the girls asks, "What would you do if we asked you to take us three right now?" And oh my God, my brain kicks into overdrive at a million miles per second. I'm trying to process this, trying to figure out how to respond, but I'm also realizing I'm in way over my head. Well, here's the kicker. The girl who started this whole conversation, she's my best friend's girlfriend. And yeah, I don't mess with my friend's girls. So with a mix of disappointment and relief, I had to politely decline. I'll never forget that moment though. It was like a real life, what would you do? Scenario that had me questioning my whole moral compass. Story 32. Let me tell you about this one time my ex and I went on a beach trip to a hotel. We're checking in, and I immediately noticed two things. One, my entire family's there, which she was already a little insecure about. And two, there are women in bikinis everywhere, which to be honest made her feel even more insecure. So what does she do? She feels this intense need to mark her territory, like she has to remind me I'm your woman. The moment we step into the room, she's all over me. But here's the twist. She's on her period, and neither of us were into that, so we were working with, well, other options. And let's just say she wasn't exactly a fan of oral. She had a small mouth, I had some reasonable girth, so it was logistically not easy. And honestly, it wasn't her favorite thing to do. Most times, if I was lucky, I'd get about 30-60 seconds of foreplay. But that day, she was on a mission. It was like she flipped a switch. Objectively, it might not have been the best experience skill-wise or physically, but holy crap, mentally and emotionally, it was off the charts. The energy and intensity she brought made it one of those moments that seared into my memory as one of my top intimate experiences. Story 33. Let me take you back to this one night that still burned in my memory. It was about 15 years ago, and the girl of my dreams at the time invited me over right in the middle of a tropical storm. I'm talking full-on crazy rain. Like if the storm was any worse, we'd be on the news. We decide to take her dog for a walk in the middle of the deluge, because why not? We're soaked, the rain's coming down like a monsoon, and I'm just trying not to drown. We get back to her place, and she tells me she's going to change. She disappears into her room, and then comes back out, just in a towel. And that's when I knew game on. I mean, it was like the storm outside didn't matter anymore. What happened that night? It was one of those moments that still pops into my head every now and then, even though I'm happily married to someone else now. The storm, it may have passed years ago, but that night, it still lingers every so often. Story 34. His was on our third date, and things were going, well, let's say interesting. We're at a restaurant, and the service was so bad that he actually turned to me and asked if it was cool to just make me dinner instead. He wanted to make sure I was comfortable coming over to his place, so it wasn't like he was rushing me into anything. Super respectful, which was already a win in my book. We get to his place, and he throws together this amazing meal, all while apologizing for not having much to work with. But honestly, it was delicious. On top of that, he was really going out of his way to make sure I felt safe and at ease. Good conversation, a foot rub, and before I knew it, he asked if I was ready to go home. But then he noticed my hesitation, and that's when things took a sharp turn. He tells me, "Look, we either need to leave now, or you stare not leaving until I make you breakfast tomorrow because I'm really having a hard time holding back." I'll admit, I was torn, but after that, it was game over. Safe to say, I opted to stay, and I've never been picked up and tossed into a bed quite like that before. Let's just say I left the next afternoon completely out of my mind. Story 35. All right, so this was a while ago, but I'll never forget the first time I had intimacy with my first adult girlfriend. She was 20, I was 23, and honestly, it was a messy time for both of us. But despite all the chaos, I was so into her, she was into me too. And in my mind, she was the perfect woman for me. Others, well, they didn't exactly agree, but whatever. I'm not going to get into all the specifics, but one thing that's always stuck with me was the image of her the morning after. She was standing there in just my shirt, hugging her melons so fittingly, holding two mugs of coffee, nothing else on. In the haze of my 20s, that memory is one I still hold on to. It was one of those moments where everything else fades, and it's just you, her, and the feeling that it all just clicked for a moment. Story 36. Okay, so this happened a while back, and it's a memory that I'll never forget. Let me set the scene. I was working at a big box store doing my thing in the hardware department. There was this super attractive Latina girl who worked at the jewelry counter, and honestly, she was way out of my league. I never even thought to approach her because, come on, she was gorgeous, and I was just an average guy. Instead, I ended up asking out her friend. We went on 2 dates, but there was no spark. Fast forward a bit, and somehow I find out that the hot Latina actually liked me. My brain kind of exploded. I couldn't believe it. So I worked up the nerve and asked her out. We had a really fun time on our date. Honestly, I barely remember the details. I was just happy to be hanging out with her. But here's where it gets wild. The next time I saw her at work, she pulls me aside, hands me a slip of paper with her address, and tells me to come over at midnight. My first thought was, this is either going to be amazing or I sip am about to get caught in the worst way possible. So I sneak out of my house, trying to be as quiet as possible because, my parents would not approve. I drive to her place and I'm following the secret signals she told me to look for, making sure her family is asleep. I finally get to her window and she lets me in. And from there, let me tell you, it was go time. She was all over me, and honestly, I was just trying to enjoy the moment, but I was so nervous the entire time. I kept thinking, what if her dad comes downstairs right now and catches me? It was seriously one of those situations where I was like, if I get caught, I'm definitely going to be in big trouble, but what a way to go. So yeah, it didn't go exactly as planned. I may have gotten a little nervous, and I didn't quite finish things the way she expected. But the whole experience was something I'll never forget, terrifying and thrilling all at once. Story 37. I was 20, and I'm still kind of surprised by how everything went down. At the time, I was working at a dealership, and I sold a car to this woman who was 42. She seemed super confident and put together, while I was just trying to do my job and not mess anything up. Anyway, I was showing her how to activate the cruise control on the steering wheel, and as I was doing that, I accidentally grazed her breast. I immediately felt like I just committed some huge faux pas, but she didn't seem to mind. She excused herself to the restroom, and I thought nothing of it. That is, until later that night when she called me. She said she left a CD at my desk and asked if she could come pick it up before the dealership closed. I told her that it was fine and I'd be staying late anyways. So she shows up, but here's where it gets interesting. She's dressed completely differently than when she came in earlier, looking way more casual and a bit more alluring. She then asks me if I want to go out for drinks. Of course, I'm down, but being a 20-year-old with little experience in this area, I panicked and lied about my age. I told her I was 20, I know, rookie mistake, and suggested we skip the drinks and go straight to dinner instead. She didn't miss a beat and told me she could cook something for me that I'd never forget. Long story short, we ended up at her place, and well, let's just say we hooked up. Didn't get the dinner though, but I think the night worked out just fine in the end. I definitely learned a lot that night, not just about how to sell cars, but also how to handle situations where you might not be quite as experienced as you think you are. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.